Welcome to episode 2 of the diary. We're back down on the club water, the Mere. I'm actually at the tail end of a little session at the minute with nothing to report apart from 2 bream and 2 pike as well. Actually, I caught 2 pike yesterday, got bored of the carp and decided to get the lure rod out and caught 2 pike, which is nice. But yeah, 2 bream to report from last night and a massive raft of weed wiping me out as well. Weed's really coming up in this lake at the minute. Where we're fishing at this time, it's not that bad for fishing in. There's plenty of clear spots, you can't really see the weed because it's quite deep. But the other end of the lake, or should I say the rest of the lake, you can see the weed all over the surface. It's absolutely everywhere, which is quite nice and carpy, but a nightmare to fish in. But because we're fishing at the end of the wind, in the deeper water, all of the loose weed from that end is coming straight down here and wiping the rods out. So at the minute I've got the rods pretty much completely submerged up to the second eye and I'm still getting taken out by weeds. So as I was saying to Jack earlier on, I think I might have to invest in back leads as much as I dislike them. I think that might have to be the way forward for this area. I've got my rods on familiar spots, nothing out of the ordinary. The last time we spoke about the video diary, it was the introduction, episode 1 obviously, and a little bit's happened since then, to be fair. If you've been watching the channel, you know I've been doing day tickets last month, and then I jumped back on the Mere last week, as I couldn't fish last month on the Mere, so I jumped back on last week and had a really good session. So this video is pretty much going to be about recapping that session, talking about the rigs that I used, baiting strategies and things like that. Obviously I can't show you any spots, I can't show you any b-roll whatsoever actually, so we'll keep it nice and simple and nice and techie for you, so you can get the full gist of it. Instead of me waffling like a normal video, you're getting rigs and bait talk instead, if that's your thing. So I haven't been here for a month, came back down after a month after shooting that last video here. Had that little stocky in the middle of the night to end the video on, which is a wicked start, but then I couldn't fish it for a month, so catching a fish at the last moment and then not being able to fish was an absolute nightmare, if I'm honest. I was twitching at night, dreaming about the place. Jack, who's one of the HF team members, he's fishing it with me at the minute. He's doing a campaign with me. He's actually behind the camera, just there, with a lure rod in his hand, because he's caught no carp either, so he's trying to catch a pike. Oh, hello. Which one was that one? That one. There we go, another beat, probably more weed. So yeah, so Jack's down here with me as well. So for the past month we've been constantly talking about the place, basically bigging up every plan possible that we can think of that we're going to empty the place within a week, cave it in, put loads of bait in, catch some dead fish, and just empty the place instantly, as you do when you're sort of bigging up a new lake and you're getting all excited about it. So first time back on was last weekend. If you follow me on Facebook and Instagram, you've just seen a couple of catch pics that I've had out of here. You haven't seen them all yet as I'm recording this, but I'll put some more up for you. Arrived down here for not quite a 48-hour session, probably about a 40-hour session, something like that. Arrived down here on the Friday afternoon, and true to form, there was no one else here, which is amazing, apart from Jack. Sorry, Jack had been here since 5:30 that morning. He'd been having a bit of a stalk, having a bit of a mooch around, trying them off the top, and then set up in a peg just down from me here, which is where he is again now. So I arrived here, just Jack here, set up in the swim that I did the previous video in, because I had a fish from a spot, I knew a spot, and I wanted to jump straight back in the action again. Jump back in here, put one rod back on that same spot, another one I've put halfway across with catapulting some boilies out over it, and the other rod I put over to the left hand side. That was it, set the rods up. We'll talk about baiting and rigs in a second. I'll tell you the story first, we all like a story. So that was that. What happened then? As dusk started, the no-seams and mozzies came out and completely destroyed us all. Another friend of ours, Rory, came down and joined us. He slept under the stars with the mozzies, which probably wasn't the wisest idea, but nothing happened during the night at all. I was woken up at 4 AM by the first take off the middle spot, the same spot that I caught the previous fish on from the last video, and that was a proper dark stocky. I'm sure it was still a stocky, maybe a couple of years in the lake, something like that, not a new stocky. About 14.5 pound we weighed that one. proper black shoulders, amazing fish. So that was the first fish at about 4 AM. I was really happy, got another bite, I was done then. I could quite happily not catch anything else the rest of the session. But unknowns to me, at 8 AM, so 4 hours later, on the same spot again. Was it the same spot, Jack?
Same spot. It
was the same spot, wasn't it? See, I'm glad Jack's here. On the same spot again, another take, big battle, and that one was an original, or what we assumed to be original. Obviously we couldn't ask it. That one, what we assumed to be is an original, probably about 15, maybe 16 pounds at a real push with a bit of water in the sling. Looked to be a bit spawned out. Proper old, gnarly, big forehead, black shoulders, wrinkly fins. You know the fish I'm talking about. Amazing fish, as you can see from the pictures, absolutely wicked. The pictures actually don't do any justice whatsoever in the slightest bit, but Jack was there on camera as well, got some different angles for us, got some wicked little shots. So as you can see, wicked fish. By that then, I was done. I was really happy I'd caught what we thought was an original fish. Once again, I could have packed up and gone home, but we stayed because we had another night. During the Saturday day, Jack went home, Rory went home, and it was just myself and Lad here, all on our own, just fishing the same spots, nice and peaceful, nice and quiet. Nothing happened during the day whatsoever. The area that we were in was completely devoid, no life, nothing going on. Came to the evening, and the first fish came at, I'm going to say 11 o'clock, half 10, 11 o'clock. First fish came at, and that was on the left hand spot, and that was a stocky again, pretty much the same age as the fish from the last video, I think. Same stocking, same strain of fish, looked very similar, just different scale pattern. So that was that one. So I got another spot that was working for me, over the moon with that. The next bite came at 1 o'clock, and when the take came, obviously I was in my bivvy fast asleep, mozzie mesh was down, absolutely melted off. I had my 3 rods on the buzz bars. I've now learned, and I've now got 2 and a 1 going on, but I had 3 rod on the buzz bars. Left hand rod melted off, left hand spot again. The clutch wasn't even done up tightly, the clutch was on quite loose, so it could take line, but the take was that vicious, it had pulled the rear rod rest completely round and spun it round. The other 2 rods were half hanging off. The left hand rod with the take on was up against the alarm, being dragged into the water with line being taken as well. One of the most ferocious takes I've ever seen in my life. Got out the mozzie mesh, crocs on, waddled over, lifted into it, big fight ensued, massive battle, really powerful fish. It's deep water we're fishing here, it's about 14 foot, so they've got a lot of water to work with when they're on the end of the line. That one came in, got it in the net, peered down, and it's a banger. Got it on the sling, gave it away, had a look at it, got a few pictures of it. Obviously I didn't do a video of it, I just got some pictures of it. As you can see, absolute minter, almost a fully scaled, bit of a bare patch on each flank either side, but that one came in at 22 pounds on the nose pretty much, and it was an absolute minter. Again, what we later know as a known fish, people know it's in here, it's been caught before obviously, but that's another original. So absolutely buzzing with that one. 3 fish down, 4 fish down even at that point, 2 originals, 1 22 pounder for here, absolutely mint. In the lake itself, I'm not sure if I mentioned in the last video what the sort of stocking is, but there's probably 80 to 100 fish in here. There might be a couple of 30s, but most of them are late 20s, but really old. The type of fish that I love. If you watch my Winterly videos, you know I love an old fish, you know I love a banger, so that's why I'm fishing here. So to catch 22 pounder, really happy, really old fish. Buzzing. Got that rod back out on the spot. Next morning, 4 o'clock came again, and I had another take on the middle rod. That one screamed off again as well, massive take, got that one in, and that was a common, probably a stocky again, maybe stocked in here 12 months, 18 months ago I think. I don't think it's one of the fresh stockies, I think it's probably a previous stocking program fish. Lovely common. I'm just looking out of the water and I'm sure I can see a carp swimming around on the surface. No, ignore me. Just completely, Jack's just sat up like a pointer. No, it wasn't a fish at all, Jack, sorry. Where was I up to? So yeah, stocky common, So that's 5 fish for the session, absolutely buzzing. Went home, high on life, nothing could go wrong. Absolutely amazing session. So that was that session fish wise. Now I said we're going to get a bit more techie in this, so I'm going to show you the rigs. We haven't done rig talk or really bait talk for a lot. Most of the vlogs have been me wafting on B-roll and a couple of fish here or there, so I said we'd get a bit more into rigs and stuff. So let's get straight to it. Now if you watch the channel, you will all know the old faithful multi-hinge that I've been using absolutely everywhere. I've done 2 videos on it now. I'll link the newest video in a little card at the top of this video for you. Little multi-hinge, this is one I've got in my rig box. It's not one of the ones I've been fishing with, slightly different. This is quite short. I've been fishing with it. It's about 1.5 inches long from the putty to the hook, so a little bit longer because it's really silty and really weedy out there. And then the actual hook length, well, the boom section, sorry, itself, I'm fishing at about 12 or 13 inches, so a really long boom section. Components wise, it's everything that I've used before. So the boom section itself is hybrid Conda, really nice sort of semi-stiff coated braid with a little bit broken underneath the putty there just to give it that hinge effect. Quite a large loop in the end, larger than this one, just to act as a bit of a kicker because I'm using a helicopter setup. I don't use a anti-tangle sleeve on the quick link swivel on the helicopter rig. I use a little tiny bit of the end cut off, put over the quick link, so you've still got the end of the quick link showing. So quite long booms to act as a kicker, loop sorry, to act as a kicker. Down to the business end, I'm using double over Fox rigidity, putty on the end there obviously, and the hook is a hybrid chod hook, size 6 this one is, and then baits mounted on with the bait screw without the little flexi ring on the bait screw, just the bait screw itself. So quite a simple rig. You've seen it on the channel a million times, you know how I tie it now from the previous video. Really effective. It's my banker rig, I go to it every time and it works every time as well. Haven't lost a fish on this water yet, touch wood. I don't think I've actually lost a fish on the rig, thinking back. I probably have, but who knows, I can't remember. So that's the first rig that I've been using. That caught 3 of the fish from last weekend. It caught... what did it catch? It caught all the... this was on the middle spot, this rod was, so it caught the first stocky, the first original, and then the common stocky from the next final morning as well. So that's that rig there, banker rig, as I say. Seen the card, links up above, have a look at it, give a go tying it yourself. It's a deadly rig. Now the second rig in question is something that I've been playing around with for about, well, since the start of the year really, so good grief, nearly about 6 months now. We all love a Ronnie, don't get me wrong, I've been using Ronnies for ages, I really like them. But to me there was one big downfall with the Ronnie, and that was the movement of the actual bait on the shank of the hook. Now we know it can move quite well on the shank of the hook because you have the micro ring swivel or the bait screw, whatever, mounted to the hook, and then you have a hook bead up the shank of the hook in which the bait screw or hook bead can, or hook swivel, sorry, can slide up and down it, and that's your rig movement. I didn't quite think it was enough movement. I quite like it on this type of rig for the bait to blow back even further to really pull that point of the hook home. Now with everyone using the Ronnie nowadays, I think these little 1% tweaks and little 1% edges can really make a difference to a rig that's being absolutely battered to death. It's a great rig, don't get me wrong, but I think it comes a time and a place where everyone's using it. The fish can get used to it, as dumb as they can be, and they get used to ejecting them. So those little differences I think can make a big difference. So I started playing around with what effectively is the original Ronnie rig. I found the instructions on how to tie this, and I think it was on the Carp Feed website, and I'm sure Martin Clark did a little blog on how to tie it. If I find it, I'll link it in the description below for you. I'll probably do a video on it at some point, but it's a bit of a nightmare to tie. But I'll probably do a video for you on it at some point. So I was playing around with this and started using it, and to be fair, it's actually really done the business for me. I'm not as confident in it as yet as I am with multi-hinge. I still prefer the multi-hinge over the Ronnie every day, but I think having them both out there on different rods just gives something a little bit different for fish to deal with, maybe. I don't know, I just like having different rigs out there. To tie it, it's actually quite complicated. The Ronnie's renowned for being a really easy rig to tie. You can change the hook however you want, whenever you want, if the hook point gets turned over. Really easy little setup, and it's made in the quick link swivel, so you can change the hook. And Corda obviously have the dedicated spinner hooks, swivels out now as well for you. But this one, you can't really do that with it at all. It's not made for changing hooks, it's just made as an effective rig. I think it was originally made as a safe 360 rig. Something a little bit safer than having that swivel on the shank of the hook with the bare metal exposed to catch on nets and things like that. I've never used a 360, so I can't really say if it does or not. But I think it was made as a little bit of a safe version of that. Now, the bait's actually mounted to the hook on a slip D with a micro ring swivel or a bait screw, and that's how it's mounted. The hook is then mounted to a normal ring swivel with 3 overhand knots, believe it or not, and then shrink tube over the top. So that's how it's mounted. There's no quick link swivel in there. It's a bit finicky to tie, but it's definitely worth it just to get that extra bit of movement on the hook bait there. When that slip D blows back with the bait on with the ring swivel, when it blows back, that little bit of extra movement takes that bait pretty much straight against the point of the hook to really drive it home when the fish is blowing that bait out. I think that little bit of a difference makes a huge difference. Now, you can fish it with any boom that you like, obviously. I had, trying to think what I had them on. The 2 fish off the left hand spot came on Corda boom, actually, on the Ronnie, on the original Ronnie, whatever you want to call it. It was, I think it might have even been this rig, to be honest. Say 10 or 11 inches of Corda boom, crimped up, crimped tight to the ring swivel on the hook, and then a loop crimped at that end, just so it settles down really nicely over any weed on the helicopter setup and kicks it really far away. Obviously components, once again, hook, hybrid. That one is a curve, size 4. That one is hybrid curve shank size 4 to a normal ring swivel. Little micro ring swivel there on the slip D for the bait. Dead simple. Quite long rigs on this water for me, for a change. Actually, I've sort of switched over to really long rigs as no one really does it anymore, especially fishing in silt or weed as well. I think it's almost a necessity, just to keep that rig clear of any debris, any low-lying weed, any silt or anything like that. So quite long rigs, and they've been doing the business. So they were the 2 rigs that I was using on the last session, and I'm using this session as well, but with no choy this time. They're the 2 rigs that I've been using. Really good. If you want to try the multi-hinge, link to the video upstairs, as I said before. If you want to try this slip D Ronnie or original Ronnie, whatever you want to call it, I'll find that link to the Carp. I'm sure it was the Carp feed site. I'll find the link to it and put it down below for you. Really easy instructions to follow. I followed it, so it's got to be pretty simple. They're the rigs. Baiting wise, I'll leave it on here a second. Baiting wise, I've been using 15mm pop-ups. These are the Supreme Marine range from HF Angling. Normal airball pop-up, but I've pimped them as I do with everything. So this one in particular has been pimped with the new Technifudu, sorry, can't say that word. The new Technifudus, and then coated in GLM powder. Effectively the same type of thing that I used to do with my krill pop-ups when fishing in Winterley, just to pimp them that little bit more and give them that little bit of extra attraction. That was the same pop-up fished on every rod as it is again this session. Same pop-up, match the hatching colour, little pop-up, just sitting above the weed or above the silt. That's the hook bait. Now the loose feed that I've been using has been the Supreme Marine, again freezer bait range this time, in 20mm I'm going for, because there are some big bream in here, so I've been fishing with using big baits as a loose feed. I've actually been rehydrating them. I've rehydrated baits for a while now, but Mark Pitchers, good old Mark Pitchers, kicked me back off on the rehydrating thing when he did a video for CC Moore on rehydrating live system only about a month or 2 ago or so, something like that maybe. I'll put a link to that as well down below for you. He did a video on how he rehydrates, and it really kicked off the rehydration back in my mind for me again. So I did it exactly the same way that he does it, the right way to rehydrate boilies. Took them out of the freezer. I've been air drying them for about 3.5 days, out in the sun constantly at night time and everything, really drying them down to the like marbles. And then after that I'll put them in a bucket, fill it up mostly till they're covering the baits with bottled water again, like Mark Pitchers does, so you're not any contaminants or anything like that. And then topping it up with the Supreme Marine glug, I used pretty much a full bottle, to be fair, for 2 kilos of buoys, which is a bit overkill, but I like a bit of overkill. So a full 500 millilitres of Supreme Marine Glug goes in, covers the boilies, and then I squirt a bit of Techni food ooze in there as well, and then I'll leave that to sit for the rest of the week. So they've basically got a whole week's preparation on the bait before I go fishing. And as you can see from them, they're in a really dark, molasses coloured water almost, which is effectively the colour of the glug, the Supreme Marine Glug, with the tuna additives and all those good fishy smells and additives. And they've been soaking in there all week, and they swell up a little bit. It washes them out, but it also absorbs all that flavour and water into the bait, so when they go into the lake, they don't absorb any of the silt smell, any of the stench, any of the horrible sort of grime that's at the bottom of this really old lake. And that's the bait strategy I've been doing. Throwing stick, 20 millers, pinging them over. I've been getting through about 2 kilos in 24 hours, something like that, over the 3 rods. Pinging them over there with a throwing stick, and then fishing the pop-ups around said boilies. And it's an approach that I really like. I love fishing with a throwing stick. I much prefer that to spotting bait out. I like fishing over a bed of boilies, and it's done me really well so far, obviously. Now the campaign itself in the actual lake, how's it going to pan out from here? I don't know, to be honest. It's a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? I've probably put together 3 pieces of a jigsaw puzzle so far out of 500 pieces. As it is with any approach on a new lake, and if you're doing a campaign on somewhere that's a bit older, a bit tricky, or wherever it is, if you're doing a bit of a campaign, it's always a jigsaw puzzle. And you don't get a jigsaw piece every time you catch a fish. You get a jigsaw piece every time you learn something new, every time you sort of figure something out about the lake, and I'm probably about 3 pieces in so far. Now I've only really fished 1 or 2 swims in the lake because I've been catching fish from them. There's loads of other swims that I do want to fish, and I am going to fish. But for the time being, while I've been catching fish, I've been staying down here and just enjoying the lake at the moment, and just becoming one with it, shall we say. Just absorbing the lake, absorbing the noises, the sounds, the sights, this whole end of the lake here, and just getting to live it for a while. I'll start to venture around the other swims soon, no doubt. Jack's even said himself he's going to start to venture down the other end very soon. But for the time being, we're staying here, certainly until I think it's the right time to move. I know there's fish up the other end because it's very shallow up there. I know they get up there, and I know they're up there right this very second as well. But I just think in this heat at the minute, I don't think they're going to be feeding up there, which is why I'm staying with the deeper water, trying to catch them on the way back down again. As I've said, I'm going to try and keep this as a diary piece, so I'm not going to try and waffle on too much about nonsense and rubbish like I usually do. I'm going to try and keep it facts, informative, and just take you along for the ride with me. So for this session, I need to pack up in about half an hour or so and head off home. So I'm going to start packing things away now. I've a really dry throat today, excuse me. I'm on the guesty mug. I forgot my mug. It's at the sink at home. Guesty mug. Doesn't taste as nice. So yeah, so I'm going to try and keep you as informative as possible. That wasn't informative at all, was it? That was me waffling. Yeah, I need to stop doing that, don't I? Sorry. So I'm going to pack up about half an hour or so, get the rods in. If I miraculously catch one before I pack up, it'll be at the end of this video. Very similar to the last one, actually, so let's see if we can do that again. But that's it for this week. These videos might not come every week, as I said in the last one. They might be every other week. It depends on what content I've got and what's been happening, and what time I get to be at the lake as well. For example, next weekend I'm not fishing. I'm at the wedding next weekend, so there's no fishing next weekend for me. So it's going to come maybe the week after that. We'll see what happens. But for me, for now, for the diary, another episode, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Hope this is a good different for my channel for you guys. If you like the way this is heading, please let me know in the comments below. If you don't, let me know as well. If you'd like to see it done some other way, I'll accept any comments, any advice that you have that you would like to see. Let me know in the comments below. If you're not subscribed yet, please do. It does mean a lot. And I will see you in the next diary episode.